I am Gregory Hallows, and this is Preserve Halloween Podcast. We're coming up on the end of the month of January already. This year is going by rather quickly. February will be upon us, and with February coming up in the next few days, we are starting, holidays will be starting up again. In January, we did have a couple, but February brings us a holiday called Candlemas, which is celebrated on the 2nd of February, and this is also known as the Feast of the Presentation of Jesus Christ, the Feast of the Purification of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and the Feast of the Holy Encounter. And this is a Christian holy day that commemorates the presentation of Jesus at the temple. Well, Imbolc is an ancient Celtic feast, usually held on February 1st, and was and is considered a time of purification, preparation, and celebration for the new life that comes during springtime. This Gaelic traditional festival marks the beginning of spring and lands just about halfway between winter solstice and the spring equinox. So, historically, Imbolc was widely observed throughout Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. It is one of the 4 Gaelic seasonal festivals, along with Bealtaine, Lungnistad, and Samhain. And I apologize if I am pronouncing all of those incorrectly. I almost pronounced Samhain incorrectly. For Christians, especially in Ireland, this is a feast day for Saint Brigid. I'll talk about that more in just a minute. Imbolc is also known as Imbolg, Omelc, Brigid's Day, Brigit's Day, Saint Brigid's Day, Saint Brigit's Day, Lupercus, the Feast of Lights, Groundhog's Day, and even it is known as Candlemas. So wait a minute, didn't I say earlier at the beginning of the podcast that Candlemas was a Christian holy day? Well, as many of us know, Christian religion adopted many pagan holidays and traditions while they were making their wonderful salesman's pitch, trying to convert in a way that seemed much less intrusive to those who they were attempting to convince to switch over to their religion. Not always done in a good way, but that is history. As mentioned above, the ancient feast of Imbolc is also known as Brigit's Day, and this honors the great Irish goddess Brigid. At her shrine in the Irish capital of Kildare, they would have 19 priestesses because no men were allowed, and they would keep a flame burning constantly in her honor. Brigid is known as the goddess of fire, inspiration, healing, craftsmanship, and midwifery, but she is also the patroness of the hearth, poets, craftsmiths, craftspeople, healers, and priests. In some of the legends and history and folklore, whatever you want to call it, it was said that Brigid had 2 sisters who were also named Brigit, and another version of the word Brigit is bride, and so Brigid, basically, whenever a woman is to be married or handfasted in the time frame of history, women were called a bride in the honor of Brigid. So that was really cool to read about. On Imbolc / St. Brigid's Day, Brigid's crosses were made, and a doll-like figure of her would be, carried around from house to house by girls. Sometimes they were accompanied by straw boys. In some legends, the girl who became Saint Brigid wove her very first cross as she was trying to explain Christianity to her father, who was a chieftain. This is just, one of the accounts. In some of the other stories, the cross is not a cross at all, but it is a wheel of fire. And if you've seen any pictures of these crosses, it would explain why they look the way they do, the shape. But in parts of Ireland, Brigid is known as a goddess of the crossroads, and her symbol, the cross or the wheel of fire, whatever you think it is, this represents the place where two worlds meet, and the year at the time, of this celebration is at a crossroads between light and dark. So Imbolc is the time frame when Brigid was said to visit your home, and to receive her blessings, you would have to make a bed for her and leave her out, food and drinks, and anything that you wanted to be blessed would be left outside. Items of clothing, those would be left outside for her to bless. And she was also asked to protect the homes and the livestock of the people. To do this, like many things in history you read, there were special feasts, and people considered this a time of divination. So let's get back to the Christian version of this day. Candlemas is the Christianized name for Imbolc. The Roman Catholic Church did not want to call what was considered a goddess in Ireland a demon, so what they did instead, they sainted her. So for Roman Catholics, she became Saint Brigid. She was the patron saint of smithcraft, poetry, and healing. And they explained this to Irish people by saying that Brigid was really, in reality, an early Christian missionary. And any miracles that she was said to perform were, this misled common people into believing she was a goddess, and basically the Irish, or some of the Irish, just believed this. So Brigid's holiday was marked by kindlings of sacred fires, and she, because she symbolized fire as birth and healing, she was also symbolized fire of the forge and fire of poetic inspiration. So bonfires were lit, and this was done to, basically honor her. And the Roman Church also basically took that symbolism and made it their own. So Candlemas became a day when the church candles that would be used for the coming year would all be blessed. So Roman Catholics, Christianity, not only did they adopt Brigid herself, they also adopted her fire symbolism. So anybody that is a lover of history and learning about religion and holidays and things like that, there's lots of stories like this where religions co-opt or steal other religions, especially pagan, steal it for their own. So one of the things I read was about purification and what this meant. This was an old custom referred to as churching women. This was because women were believed that they were impure for 6 weeks after giving birth, and since Mary was who gave birth at the winter solstice, she would not be purified until February 2nd. So that is the symbolism, or the time frame for the day. In pagan symbolism, you might be able to compare this to when the Great Mother once again becomes the young maiden goddess. And one of the most interesting things that I read while doing research for this podcast was February 2nd is Groundhog's Day in the US and I believe Canada. And one article that I read compared or basically stated that Groundhog is a manifestation of the god. And he has been sleeping since Samhain and stirs in his slumber to get a take on the coming light. So I found a poem or a little limerick or whatever you want to call it that went, "If Candlemas Day be sunny and bright, winter again will show its might. If Candlemas Day be cloudy and gray, winter soon will pass away." This sounded a lot like the Pennsylvania Dutch belief that if a groundhog sees his shadow, we will get 6 more weeks of winter. It's funny how, all of these things, the more you research and the more you read about things, they all have ties and somehow seem related. So I am going to start saying that this is 6 degrees of Samhain. So it's really fun for me to look up holidays and certain times of the year and find out how things came about. And, there is so much history that is not written down. It was passed on, orally. So a lot of this stuff is really, really difficult to pin down information on because it was not until, Christians started writing down a lot of stuff that there is, some history about these things. And, a long time ago, history was spoken and passed on, verbally. So yeah, it's really cool to find all these old books and all these old articles. And I've gotten a lot of help from a ton of really good online sites. I'll list those in the information on this podcast. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due because, a lot of this stuff is just me reading articles that wonderful people have already written, and just trying to compile it in a way that somewhat makes sense, but isn't very, crazy long. I think that one of the biggest goals I have in this podcast is to stir the interest for people to want to research these things themselves. I don't want to be the be all end all of information because there's no way that I can be that. I just want to pass on things that interest me and pass on things that I think that, the people that listen will find interesting. And hopefully it's information that you either didn't know much about or have always been interested in, and this kind of sparks that interest even more. So I'm going to end this podcast on the note, or I found a really cool band called Saudwi. I'm probably saying it wrong. I really apologize for a lot of the pronunciation I do because I'm sure it's way off. But they have an album that combines basically traditional folk music with metal, pretty much. But they have a song called Imbolc, and it's also the name of the album, I believe. So thank you for listening, and as always, preserve Halloween.